there's so much comparison or so many expectations that we have. And that's the same thing with body image too, or with our weight. Like we have such high expectations of ourselves, of how we need to look and how much we need to weigh, or others actually don't. And it's us who, sometimes we make our own life so much more, I'm not going to say miserable, but we make it way harder than it needs to be at times.
Welcome to the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast, where you will learn simple solutions to win at work without losing at home. Hi, my name is Martine Williams, and I'm your host and CEO, your Chief Encouragement Officer. And this podcast is your one-stop shop to creating a burnout-proof life and business by elevating your clarity, confidence, and courage. Friends, it's time to say goodbye to being the yes girl, to procrastinating on your goals and living in overwhelm. And it's time to say hello to creating healthy boundaries, healthy mindsets, and healthy habits so that you can achieve work-life harmony. Your next breakthrough starts here. This is the Life Coaching for Mompreneurs podcast. Let's do this. Hey friends, y'all ready for Christmas? It's on the way. It is on the way. Well, today's Turquoise Talk guest, I want to tell you a little bit about her. It's a great conversation. Her name is Anne Reinhardt, and she is a mind, body, and leadership coach known for empowering women leaders to embrace self-worth and positive body image. Anne specializes in self-love and overcoming body image challenges, offering transformative strategies for balancing professional excellence with personal well-being. Her insights inspire women to lead authentically and live a life of full fulfillment and self-acceptance. So this is a great conversation. If you've ever struggled with self-worth, if you've struggled with body image, if you have kids that have struggled with body image, we kind of talk a little bit about that. She shares a little bit about her story. So it's just a great interview, and I cannot wait for us to dive right in. Well, hey friends, welcome back to the show. I am so excited for today's Turquoise Talk guest, Anne Reinhardt. Thank you so much, Anne, for taking the time to come on the podcast today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yes. So I'm just getting to know you, and the listeners are just going to be getting to know you. So let's just start there. Like, tell us a little bit about you, your family, and how you got into entrepreneurship or the work that you're doing today.
Yeah, I'm Anne Reinhardt. I live in Germany, was born in Germany, moved all over the world when I was in my early 20s and lived here and there. And right now I'm a single mom of a 10-year-old. We got a little puppy a couple of months ago. So I have 2 children right now.
Yes, for sure.
For sure, right? I mean, it's real. So, I joke, I have a newborn and a 10-year-old, but they bring me a lot of joy. I am a coach who works with women around body image, self-esteem, self-love, and leadership, which is interesting that it all evolved over the last 15 years or so. So, I was brought up in a pretty well-off family, and it looked perfect on the outside, but on the inside, there was a lot of stuff going on. And when I was 9 years old, I developed an eating disorder. And then for 14, 15 years, my life revolved around food, not eating, exercising, getting rid of food and all that. So most of my teens was really spent in a battle with myself. And when I hit rock bottom and recovered at age 23, 24, I discovered coaching. So through my own healing journey and through my own, finally getting out of that mental hell that I put myself in, I was really inspired and I learned about this beautiful craft. And so, I healed, and I took a lot of time to really get to know myself. And then I wanted to be a coach too.
Yeah.
And so 15 years later, here I am, I guess.
Yeah. And isn't that like what life is all about? Like, people have heard me say on the podcast before, but our past struggles become our present purposes, and it's hard when you're in the midst of your own struggle to think about how you're going to use it, to help other people. But I love the women that I get to interview on the podcast who that's their story is, I have learned something, I have figured something out, I went through something horrible, or it doesn't have to be horrible. It could just be, I figured out a way to do business that works for me. And so now I'm going to reach back and pull the other women up with me. And I just think that's so powerful. And so I appreciate you just being vulnerable and kind of sharing that.
Sure. And I think, there's a lot of empowerment for yourself as well when you're like, okay, I've been through these steps, and the pride or the feeling of of confidence that you did that, whether it's something that, like you said, just something horrible, or it's something really fun and something where you feel like, okay, I figured out a really smart way, and then being able to share that, there's a lot of empowerment for yourself in there too, right? And sometimes that keeps you going when you struggle yourself here and there, which we all do.
Yes.
As moms and entrepreneurs. So I guess, it's a give and take.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm curious. I know there's probably some moms that are listening who have daughters. And, I'm a mom of two boys, but I've seen body image with them as well, over the years. So it's not just a gender issue, but I am curious what advice you would have for a mom who is listening today who is struggling with a daughter or a son who has body image. I think we've all been through it at some point in our life. And I think as adult women, we still go through that, and even adult men. But it's so interesting that you're on the podcast today because there's a young woman who was in my son's class who is now kind of sharing her journey. She's been in like an inpatient facility and she's like ready to share and talk about it, her healing journey. I just think there's so much power in it. But I look at the photos of her, they're like, I didn't even know what was going on. I just wasn't in her world. Honestly, she left the school and then I saw a picture of her and I'm like, wow, like I did not even know. So for a mom that's listening, that maybe she's seeing some early signs, or maybe she just hears her daughter or her son having, saying some things about themselves, like what advice would you give her?
Yeah, it's tricky, and it's, I mean, I'm a mom now, and thinking back on how my parents reacted, and there was so much push and pull, and they wanted to help, but I didn't want the help, but then I really wanted the help. And it was like, I always say, talk to them, but not about the weight or the food. Really relate to them on a deeper level, or, have conversations with them, be there. Sometimes just be present. Don't even say anything. There's so many different, there's not the one symptom why we engage in these behaviors. Yes, there's peer pressure. Yes, there's, seeing the magazines. Yes, now it's social media, but there's so much more that goes on. And I think it's about finding out who is your child, like on a deep level. What's going on? What are they struggling with? What are their dreams, their hopes? What do they yearn for? Sometimes it's like just this vast wanting of, exploring the world, and it feels so big, and it feels like, oh my God, it's too much to take in, all of these emotions. And it's interesting that you say you have two sons. Like, my son is 10, and right before his 10th birthday, a couple of months ago, in our house, we don't talk about diets. We don't talk about being to this or being to that, and good foods and bad foods. But he came to me one evening. I was sitting working, and he came to me and he was like, I'm really fat. I want to go running with you. And I internally I went berserk. Like, it was so out of the blue. And so I didn't say anything, or, just try to act cool, probably.
Yeah.
But in my mind, for days, I was going, oh my God, is he going to go down the same road? Because I was 9 when it started, and he never mentioned it again. So sometimes these things come up, and you're like, whatever, right? He was just, I have no idea. Like, I didn't want to bring it up because I didn't want to place attention on it. So listen, but sometimes it's also just, I don't know what they're talking about at school. Yeah, don't put the emphasis too much on the behavior. Just really show an interest in the person.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I say, it's not just a problem with kids. It's also just as women, that's my audience, are mom entrepreneurs. And as you're growing a business and I always tell people like, we don't own a business, we own a roller coaster, and there's ups and downs and upside down moments. And it's like all the emotions that you go through as an entrepreneur is the biggest personal development journey you'll ever be on
Right.
is
Yeah.
being a
Yeah.
parent and being an
Yeah.
entrepreneur. It pretty much sums up a personal development journey, right?
It's a tornado. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I do see how, we use vices like food or substances or things to kind of help us through those emotions. And there's different levels of confidence as you grow your business and things don't work, and you're still learning some things. Like I'm experiencing like a level up also in my own self-concept, and
Hmm.
and it's exciting, but it's also challenging at the same time. So
Yeah.
for someone who's listening, who's kind of in that phase and she's really struggling with her own confidence, what are some things that you have learned along your journey to build your confidence? And what is really the
Yeah.
connection between mind and body for that?
Right. It's a big topic. And that's why I love the mind body connection, because I always like to take the body into the work that I do, because oftentimes, especially when we're working for ourselves, like our mind goes a million places every
Yeah.
second. And, we work, work, work. Mostly we probably sit at a computer and so we don't use our body enough.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much confidence to be gained
Mm-hmm.
in really connecting with your body again.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, the first few things that I suggest or I would implement as a mom, and I know time is very valuable. And we
Right.
often, I don't know about you, but I often feel like, okay, the hour I have, I get up really early. I'm an early bird, but the time before my son wakes up, that's the only time I feel like I'm in control. And then like the day just explodes sometimes. And so I've really mastered the art of teeny tiny little pockets of
Yeah.
me time.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's while I brush my teeth or while I'm in the bathroom,
Right.
and really, but when you put attention to it and when you're like, okay, this is my time, like this is what do I need right now? Do I need to take a deep breath? Do I need to, I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
say a few words of kindness to myself? Maybe I'm going to make a plan for this to-do list that I have,
Mm-hmm.
or reaching deeper, but having these moments of connection with yourself, intentional connection,
Mm-hmm.
can really calm you throughout the day and can really help to center you.
Yeah.
So that's more about connection, but that's really like, instead of saying I don't have the time, be like, okay, I have these 30 seconds or
Yeah.
I have these 2 minutes while I brush my teeth, and then work with that. And then when it comes to the confidence and the self-image, it's all about recognizing where your value is. So your value, as much as I love working and as much as probably all of us love
Mm-hmm.
working, that's not what shows our true value. And that's not like our struggles, our highs and our lows while we build a business. That's not who we are. And
Mm-hmm.
moms, that's also it's a big part of who we are, but it's also a
Right.
part of us. So figuring out who you are and where your value lies. And that's different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we place so much attention on everyone else,
Mm-hmm.
and we're so curious and so giving about everyone else. So sometimes we can direct that attention and the curiosity onto ourselves, and just really, whether that's writing, whether it's talking to someone, whether it's talking to yourself in your phone, just really
Mm-hmm.
allowing your thoughts to process and to ask yourself, like, who am I? What do I want? What
Mm-hmm.
do I like?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And answering those questions, like I was just talking with a client the other day and she's like, I don't know what I want or where I want to
Yeah.
go. And I'm like, it's a really great question to ask. Just answer it, like spend some time, slow down and actually take some time to answer that question, because it's a really great question. I do think the quality of our answers comes from the quality of the questions that we're asking. So don't just let it be this question that's in the air floating around. Like take some time, get a pen and paper and really start thinking about what is it that I want, for
Right.
next year or for my business or as
Right.
a mom. Like I was working with a client yesterday and I was like, how do you define success at work and at home? And she was like,
Right.
I have no idea. And I'm like, but you're striving, right? And it's like we are striving for something. It's like
Right.
trying to throw a dart at a dartboard where there's no target,
Right.
right? If you haven't
Right.
defined what the target is, then you don't like, how do you even know what you're hustling and grinding for?
Yeah. And so often we're super quick to say what we don't want or what we don't like. Like we
Yeah.
know all of the things we don't want to have anymore. That's easy or easier, but then, flipping it around and actually opening up that space for dreams and to
Mm-hmm.
just, like you say, taking some time and exploring, dreaming, be a kid again in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for some reason, like there's a connection between if I'm thinking about what I want, that feels selfish,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
why we default to, well, what I don't want is this. But to actually say I want something feels like selfish, or it feels
Tricky.
self-centered, or it
Right.
feels like I'm not thinking about others. And it's really a both
Right.
and. You can want what you want and still take care of everyone else.
That's a very womany thing to
Yeah.
do. Like men don't do that as much as
No,
we
they
do,
don't.
right? It's like we're just like, yeah, well, I might like. But
hmm
yeah, it's actually really powerful to state that
hmm
and to say what you want and to claim it for you. And maybe sometimes there's this fear of, well, I'm not gonna get it anyway. Well,
mm
it's not in the cards for me or whatever. And you can deal with those fears, but the first step is to actually say, this is what I want and this is what I desire and these are my goals. And like you said, this is what I want to have happen in
hmm
2025
hmm
for myself, for my family. You could include them, of course, for my
Yeah.
business. But going there is it's also a lot of fun.
Yeah. It is. And that's why I think, like, how can we change our mindsets around this being a fun thing to be curious
Right.
about and to explore versus this like heavy, I shouldn't be doing this. I shouldn't be thinking about myself. I should be thinking about others. Or we just take what we see everyone else doing, and that's what I
Yeah.
should be doing, or that's what I
Right.
should want, versus really thinking about what it is that you want. I've shared this story on the podcast before, but when I was experiencing a lot of mom guilt when my kids were younger, I remember a coach saying to me, she was like, have you ever just sat down and asked your kids what was important to them? And I was
Mhm.
like, no, I'm just doing it based on what I saw my mom do. Right. Which was
Yes. Oh
amazing
my God.
things. It was I mean, I loved the things that my mom did, for me and for my brother, but it wasn't the same things that I really was
Right.
passionate about doing for my family. So I had this really high standard of myself. And I'll never forget sitting my kids down and talking to them about, me cooking. Like, is it important that you have food on the table, or is it important that I'm the one doing all the cooking? And they're like, Mom, I don't really know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, yes,
Like,
thank you.
hallelujah.
Thank you. Thank you. Hallelujah. But I mean, it's like if you're experiencing those things, whether it's be with your spouse or
Yeah.
people that you work with, like these expectations that we put on ourselves may not even be realistic, or it may not
Mm.
even be what the other people really are expecting of us. So just to have an honest conversation, even with your kids, about what's important to them. Like, is it important that I'm at all the practices and the games, or just the games? And they're like, oh, no, I don't care
Mm.
if you're there at the practice. But in my mind, it was like, I need to be at everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was just a lot of guilt that I was carrying around for no reason.
And isn't that interesting that it's our mental clutter and it's our own
Mm-hmm.
expectations of ourselves?
Mm-hmm.
And I had the same thing with my mom. Like I always wanted to be like my mom. And then I realized that actually I don't, but
Yeah.
because you love your mom and then you're like, okay, you put them on a pedestal and their life was, and that's how you grew up. And
Mm-hmm.
until, you're like, okay, maybe this is not my path. And or you might do that with your friends or your
Mm-hmm.
neighbors or parents of your child, in kindergarten, whatever. There's so much comparison or so many expectations that we have, and that's the same thing with body image too, or with our weight. Like we have such high expectations of ourselves, of how we need to look and how much we need to weigh, or others actually don't. And
Yeah.
it's us who sometimes we make our own life so much more, I'm not going to say miserable, but we make it way harder than it needs to
Yes.
be at
Yes.
times.
Yes.
And other people have a lot more compassion, or yeah, compassion and see us in a more complete picture, I think, than
Mhm.
our own critic does or we do ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's learning to have that shift to turn your inner critic into an inner coach.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you think about it in that way, is how can I turn the critic in my head into a coach to move me
Yeah.
forward? Because the critic is helping you to hide. The critic
Yeah.
is telling you to play small. The critic is telling you that you'll
Right.
never, or all those things. But turning it into the coach, when you think about how someone coaches a team, an Olympian team, or, you know, any team, even a little league team, like they're not saying, "Oh, you're just doing a terrible job," and these are the ways that you're
Right.
falling short.
They're
They're trying
always
to, yeah, they're always trying to point out areas that you're doing really well in. And then
right.
there's also these opportunities for growth. So
Right.
I think that's really important as the listeners really think about, like, what are your expectations and how can you turn your critic into your coach?
Yeah. I love it. Sometimes it's the question of, okay, how would my best friend respond, or what would my best friend say?
Mm-hmm.
And they would never talk to us the way we do in our own minds. So it's like, just being aware of the harsh language. And that goes back to self-confidence as well, right? The more
Mm-hmm.
we're so hard on ourselves, and the kinder we can be, I mean, the more fun and joy we can have, but also the further we can go, because we're going to have so much more stamina, in quotes,
Yeah.
to continue, even if we face setbacks, or even if the statements of "this is what we want" didn't actually come true yet. So yeah, there's only a win-win if you work on that language.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's go back a little bit to the emotional eating. And I know, especially this time of year, a lot of that's happening, probably,
Mm,
because for
yeah.
some people, whether, it's during the holidays or the first of the year, like there's probably some memories or things that didn't happen that they want to happen. And so it just brings up a lot of emotions for people. So for the woman who's listening today that maybe is in that place, what are some thoughts you have for her? Hey, friend, can I give you permission today? Like, for real, your own permission slip. Permission to get clear, to cut out the noise, mostly the noise that is going on around in your own mind, in your own head. It's just swirling. And you're asking yourself questions like, why am I stuck? Why am I frustrated? Why am I not making progress on my goals? I want to invite you to a free clarity call with me where we're going to dive in and we're going to identify what are the three main issues that are keeping you stuck. Number two, what are the mindsets around those issues that are actually keeping you from solving for those issues? It's not our skill sets, it's our mindsets that keep us stuck and hold us back. And then number three, identifying what are your next steps? We all have a next step, and we have 100% responsibility for those next steps. Your only next step right now is to go to the show notes and book your free clarity call so that we can work through this. I'm believing in you, and I cannot wait to see you on our clarity call.
Yeah, first of all, like you just said, it happens at this time of the year quite often, and sometimes more powerful because of, the build up, and it's the holidays, and there's so much, well, there's food all around. There's expectations. Here we are again
Yeah.
of what is supposed to happen, and what we want, or what other people want from us. And there's so much to do always.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
stress all around. It's a lot of emotion, a lot of extraness, I would say. And the first thing is to be aware, acknowledge that this is something you might be struggling with. This is something that you do, and it's okay. It's
Mm-hmm.
not a bad thing. And so don't diet before the holidays, or go on weird fasts or anything like that, because you're just going to end up starving yourself, and then your
Mm-hmm.
your your eating is going to go into the other direction. Keep moving. Eat, if you have a holiday party at night, you may want to choose something lighter. But during the meals, what I found to be very helpful is to, before you go into a situation, let's say there's a buffet, or there's a lot of alcohol, there's a lot of,
Mm-hmm.
food you might not always have around, and you might feel overwhelmed. So plan ahead and be like, okay, there's going to be a huge amount of food, and today I feel this way or that way. And then know that you can choose. Like, you can
Mm-hmm.
always start with, I would always start with a smallish portion, and you can always go back 2 seconds. You can eat what you like. You don't have to start with a salad. You can actually go for the foods you really love from the start. And, you know, also what we make it to be about the food so much, but sometimes when you take a step back and ask yourself, so what is this really about? Is it about eating, or is it about the people? Is it about, being in a conversation? And, if you're not around your loved ones, how can you maybe, create a similar atmosphere? Can you be at friends' places, or can you, do a Zoom meeting or a Zoom holiday party or something like that? Like, there's a lot, but be resourceful and allow yourself to experience it. And what really helped me, especially in those first years after, when I was slowly starting to recover, was writing little letters and lists of things I could do when I felt overwhelmed, or when I felt like, okay, the food is really taking over, is just to have that in my pocket and have it ready. And, know that, okay, these are like 5 steps I could do right now. Or this is a short note I wrote for myself before I went into the situation, just to know that you are prepared. And sometimes you don't even, I don't think I ever needed my notes or my little letters. I just knew I had them. And so that alone gives you the sentiment of, you got this, you actually.
Yeah.
And then, during this time also take care of yourself. Like, what else can you do other than eating? Like, what makes you feel good? Like, what do you need to take a bath? Which is always the simple answer, but it's like, I love taking baths. So
Right.
it's a great way to relax. Do you need connection? Do you need to meet with someone? Do you need to go for a walk with your best friend? Like, what is it that nourishes your soul in a different way as well? And how can you add that to the long to-do list of December, but how can you incorporate that into your daily life? So I work from home, and sometimes it does get, like, I'm on Zoom all the time, but it does get lonely. And when I feel that way, I go and, go to a coffee shop where I'm surrounded by people, just to be with others. And, these little things, they can make sometimes can make a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a couple of things as you were talking that came up for me, and really when you first started talking, the very first thing you talked about was finding those small moments. I think a lot of times we get into this all or nothing mentality that if I don't have an hour to go to the spa or go to lunch with a friend, like, that I'm just going to wait till I do.
Yeah.
Versus I'm going to take the 10 minutes that I have now, or the 30 seconds that I have now, to take some deep breaths and just kind of bring my nervous system back down into, a regulated state. And so we just miss those opportunities because we're looking for the big opportunities. And so, whether it's December, January, March, July, like, we all have a long list of things typically to do. And so how can you incorporate, and that's what I'm really big on with my clients. Like, this is not just a thing we do in the holidays or things we do during high stress moments. It's like, how can this become a daily discipline for you to find those, and not even find them, because you're not going to find time for what matters most. You actually make time for what matters most. Like your hair appointment. We don't miss our hair appointments 9 times out of 10. We're not missing it. We're going to cancel everything else for our hair appointment.
We do. It's true.
Yes, we do. So how can your own self-care and your own emotional management, your own, confidence management be in that space too? Like, how can you block out time for that too? So that was the first thing. And my mind totally went blank on what the second thing was that you said that I wanted to highlight, but
I share this story all the time, but I worked with a client earlier this year, and they were busy mom, two very small children, and, she was working as well. And she was like, I can't move. Like, there's no time for me to go to a gym, to exercise, to anything, but I really want to move, but there's no time. And she had like a hike she went on, I don't know, April, May, I don't know. And so she was like, I have this date looming. I have no time. And so we worked on that. And in the end, what she did was she started to walk 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes. Like, we all have 5 minutes. And her perceived fitness. I don't know. Like I don't work with fitness, but she felt so much better in like 6, 8 weeks. It was not a long time by
Yeah.
walking 5, and then she just did 10 minutes, but really not a lot of time. But she did
Mm-hmm.
it every day, or almost every day. It was the
Mm-hmm.
consistency that mattered, and her
Mm-hmm.
fitness improved, so she could actually go for that long hike. And so I love this story so much because it's really not a lot of time. We don't need to meditate for 30 minutes every day, right? Like you
Right.
just said,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
can use the small pockets of time we have and work with that.
Yeah.
And then we will see how good it feels. And so maybe we will be able to
Yeah.
incorporate more of that. And if we don't, perfect. Like, if 5 minutes do the thing, that's all you need.
Yeah. 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 I always say, don't overcomplicate it. Just start.
Yeah.
Like we overcomplicate. I actually did a podcast episode that was all around how we're addicted to the hard. I think
Yeah.
when things become easy or simple, or there's like this, space of flow for even like a little bit, we're like, I must be doing something wrong, and so then
It's
we
wrong.
overcomplicate, we make it
Right.
harder. I'm the queen of
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
But it's like, just put some tennis shoes on and go for a walk if you have 5 minutes.
That's
Go
it.
sit out in the
Yeah.
sun for 5 minutes if you have that. It's just starting small. Over time, it will compound and you probably will build some other healthy habits as you
Yes.
start small. And so it's, I think, especially for the ambitious mom entrepreneurs who are listening today, like, we want to do it all and we want to be all things to all people. And we want to like conquer all 10 key areas of our life versus what's just one small step in one of the areas
Right.
that we can start making progress on, because progress creates more progress. When you see that, hey, I'm doing 5 minutes a day in my walking, then you're going to be empowered and be confident that, hey, maybe I can add 5 more minutes on, and then it gets to
Yeah.
10 minutes. But if you're continuing to just wait on the hour block to free up,
It'll never happen.
right?
It's just like it'll
Yeah.
never happen. And yeah, everything in life is like, I had a day today where I felt like my head was exploding with all of the things I wanted to do. Like there
Yeah.
were things I needed to do, but there's also, we're
Yeah.
always creative. We always feel like,
Hmm.
okay, we can improve. Like work never ends,
No.
or we could work 24 hours. And then that's kind of the same thing when you have all these big ideas and all these projects in your mind, but there's so many and you don't ever start on one because you feel
Yeah.
like, if I start on this, I won't have time for that. Same
Hmm.
thing. You need to start. You need to do something in order
Hmm.
for like everything to begin rolling, and it never fails to work, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me what you're most excited about right now in your life or in your business, what you got going on that you're most excited about.
I am very excited about the one-on-one work that I do with
Mhm.
clients. Like I used to have group coaching programs and did a lot of products, but right now I love the, like I said, connection. Like I love the one-on-one
Right.
work with women, because I just love the ahas, and when we go deep, and being able to experiment. And so that's a big exciting thing. I'm right now experimenting to go back to YouTube. I have from 10, 15 years ago videos on
Hmm.
YouTube. So I'm dabbling into starting to video again, which is also one of those big creative ideas, exciting, which will take a lot of time. But that's always something I love. At heart, I think I'm like a content creator.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And if I could do that, if I could have three me's, that would be amazing.
Says every mompreneur listening
Right?
today.
It would be like, let's clone ourselves.
Yeah.
But it's, I always, yeah, feel excited by, I love putting together, like right now before Christmas, like, there's a lot of the emotional eating, the fear of weight gain. And you can do so many quick tips, there's just a lot going on in my mind.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
really where the big change happens is in the one-on-one work, right? When women really sit down or stand
Hmm.
up or whatever and are like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm taking myself seriously, and I'm going to go to places that I may not always want to go. And
Yeah.
that's what I love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Well, we're going to put links to how everybody can connect with you in the show notes. But if you could leave all the listeners with one final thought what would that be?
I think it's to chase after your dreams and to try and to, sometimes the crazy ideas that you may have in your mind where everyone says you're slightly insane and the ideas that don't make sense or that just are too out there, but the ideas that don't let go, like they're always there. You go to bed and this idea is always in the back of your head. Chase them, go after them, and sometimes we feel, well, who I can't do this. I already mentioned that, but who me? Do it anyway. Do it anyway. Just do it. And that's something I try to do, like not always successful, but life is so short. And when when we have fun and we do things that are slightly crazy, that's why not, right? Why not?
Yeah. Yeah. Why not you and why not now?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show today. This was a great conversation. I know they're going to enjoy it. And I'll catch every one of you on our next episode. Well, that's a wrap, friends. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. I really hope it met you right where you are and gave you some encouragement for your day. Could you do me the biggest favor and leave me a rating and review? Seriously, it's the best way for you to support the show. And while you're there, be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode. Thanks again. And until next time, I am believing in you always.